The version of you that was almost ready, they are gone. They are not coming. You have been waiting for a person who no longer exists. Every person who ever changed their life did it before they felt ready. Not after. Not when the fear was gone. Not when the circumstances were perfect. Not when they had saved enough or healed enough or rested enough. They moved first. The confidence came second. Every single time, without exception. That is not motivation. That is the historical record of every human transformation that has ever happened on this planet. By the end of this, you will stop waiting. Not because you feel confident, because you will understand why you never will. And once you understand that, waiting loses its power over you. You will see the trap for what it is. You will see yourself for who you actually are, not who you've been rehearsing to become. There are 5 things standing between you and the version of your life that still has a chance. The waiting trap. The readiness lie. The one decision. Who you become. And then, you move. Let's go. The waiting trap. There is a version of your life happening in your head right now. It is cleaner than the life you are currently living. The apartment is organized. The body is different. The bank account has a number in it that would change how you breathe. The relationship is either repaired or ended, whichever one you know deep down it needs to be. You wake up in this version and you are not anxious. You are not behind. You are the person you were meant to be. You visit this version constantly. Multiple times a day. You live there in flashes, while you are in the shower, while you are commuting, while you are lying in bed at 1 a.m. instead of sleeping. You have been there so many times you can feel the texture of it. The weight of it. How quiet it is. How different. And you keep telling yourself, I will start when I get there. That is the trap. Not laziness. Not fear. The trap is that you have mistaken the destination for the starting point. Think about how a person learns to swim. Not in a book. Not by watching. Not by visualizing the form until they feel ready. You learn to swim by getting into the water while you still don't know how. Every single person who can swim today got in the water before they could. That is the only way it works. The skill comes from the water. Not from waiting outside of it. You are standing at the edge of the pool. You have been standing there for months. Maybe years. And you keep waiting for the moment when you feel like a swimmer, before you get in. That moment is never coming. It cannot come from where you are standing. It can only come from being in the water, getting water in your nose, figuring it out in real time, terrified, gasping, going again. Here is what the waiting trap actually feels like from the inside. It feels responsible. It feels like wisdom. It feels like you are being careful, being strategic, being smart. You tell yourself you are not avoiding, you are preparing. You are not afraid, you are planning. You are not stuck, you are building momentum. These are the most dangerous lies because they feel like virtues. Patience feels like a virtue. Thoroughness feels like a virtue. Waiting for the right moment feels like maturity. But here is the thing about patience, it is only a virtue when something is actually coming. When you are pregnant, patience is a virtue. The baby is coming whether you wait or not. When you are waiting for a flight, patience is a virtue. The plane is on a runway. When you are waiting to feel ready before you change your life, patience is a cage. Nothing is coming. The readiness is not on a runway. It is not gestating. It does not exist in the future. It is generated only by the act of starting. Which means every day you wait patiently, you are not accumulating momentum. You are losing it. The trap works because it gives you something waiting always gives you, hope without risk. As long as you have not started, you have not failed. The dream is still intact. The potential is still theoretically unlimited. The moment you start, you risk finding out. You risk finding out it is harder than you imagined. That you are worse at it than you thought. That the gap between where you are and where you need to be is not a crack, it is a canyon. Waiting protects the dream from reality. And reality is the only place anything real has ever happened. Here is the action for today. Not this week. Today. Write down one thing you have been preparing to start. Not a plan. Not a list. One thing. Then write next to it, what is the smallest possible version of starting that I could do in the next 24 hours? Not the launch. The first step. Not the whole conversation. The first sentence. Not the full workout plan. One walk. The waiting trap can only end one way, not by feeling ready, but by making the wait so small that it becomes embarrassing. The readiness lie. Let's talk about readiness, specifically about what it actually is, because almost no one has been honest with you about this. Readiness is not a state you arrive at. It is a story you tell yourself about a state you have not arrived at yet, one that will justify starting. And because it is a story, not a state, it moves. Every time you get close to it, it relocates. You were going to start the business when you had 10,000 saved. Now you have 10,000. Now you need 20. You were going to have the conversation when things were calmer. Things got calmer. Now you need them to be calmer still. You were going to apply when you had more experience. You have more experience. You need more still. This is not a flaw in your character. It is a feature of the human brain. Your brain is not designed to make you happy. It is designed to keep you alive. And the most dangerous thing your brain has identified, the thing that triggers the most alarm, is being exposed. Being seen trying. Being seen failing. The readiness lie is your brain's way of keeping you safe by keeping you still. The psychologist Abraham Maslow spent decades studying peak human performance. He interviewed artists, scientists, athletes, leaders, people who had done remarkable things, and he found something that should dismantle the readiness lie permanently. He found that none of them felt like themselves before they started doing the work that defined them. Every single one of them became themselves through the work. Not before it. Not beside it. Through it. You think the person you are waiting to become exists somewhere in the future, fully formed, already capable, just waiting for you to catch up. But that person is not in the future. That person is built from decisions. From actions. From failures and corrections and attempts and restarts. That person is not ahead of you, they are inside the work that you keep not doing. Think about learning a language. You cannot learn Spanish by studying Spanish in English forever. At some point, you have to open your mouth and say wrong things to a Spanish-speaking person. You have to be embarrassed. You have to be misunderstood. You have to feel like an idiot. That moment, that terrible, uncomfortable, stumbling moment, is not the obstacle to speaking Spanish. It is the instruction. The fluency does not come before the stumbling. It comes from it. Now apply that to your life. The relationship you want, the one built on honesty and depth, does not come before the hard conversations. It comes from having them, even badly, even when you do not know exactly what to say. The body you want does not come before the workouts that feel like too much. It comes from showing up when it feels like too much, consistently, long enough that too much becomes normal. The career you want does not come before the projects that might fail. It comes from doing them, failing some of them, and learning what you could not have learned any other way. This is what makes the readiness lie so costly. It is not just that it delays your start. It is that every day you wait for readiness, you are also delaying the feedback. You are keeping yourself away from the information that would actually make you capable. You are standing at the edge of the pool reading books about buoyancy. The water is the teacher. Not the reading. There is a specific kind of grief that hits people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, a grief that is very hard to name. It is not the grief of losing something. It is the grief of realizing what you chose. It is the grief of understanding that the version of you who was almost ready, who was going to start next year, next month, when things settled down, that person consumed years of your life and gave you nothing in return. No attempt. No failure. No lesson. Nothing to build on. Just the comfortable feeling of potential, preserved perfectly, unused. Do not let that be your story. The action today: take one area of your life where you have been waiting to feel ready. And ask yourself one question. Not, am I ready? That question has no useful answer. Ask, what is the cost of not starting today? Not the risk of starting. The cost of not. Be specific. Not, I'll fall behind. How many months? How many years? What will you not have built? Who will you not have become? Make the cost real. The readiness lie survives in the abstract. It cannot survive contact with the specific, real, accumulating cost of another day of waiting. The one decision. Here is the thing no one tells you about the people you admire. The ones who built things. Changed things. Became things. There was not a sequence of perfect decisions that got them there. There was one decision. One moment where they stopped negotiating with themselves. Where they stopped asking whether they were ready and started asking what would happen if they moved. One decision. And then they built everything on top of it. This is not a metaphor. This is neurologically accurate. The brain runs on what researchers call action potential, the threshold at which a neuron fires. Below the threshold, nothing happens. You can pour energy into the system all day. You can think about it, plan it, talk about it, dream about it. Nothing happens. But once you cross the threshold, once the action potential fires, the cell commits fully. It does not fire halfway. It does not fire tentatively. It fires completely. And that signal travels. It creates a chain. It builds. You are waiting for your brain to naturally reach action potential on a goal that scares you. That is not how the brain works. The brain requires a decision, a single, committed, binary choice, to cross the threshold. Not a plan. Not a wish. A decision. So what does the decision actually look like? It does not look like a grand announcement. It does not look like telling everyone you know. It does not look like a new journal or a vision board or a post on social media about your new chapter. Those things are not decisions. They are performances of a decision. And the difference is that a performance is designed to be seen, which means it is still about how you look, not about what you do. The decision looks like a private moment. Alone. No audience. Just you and the thing you have been avoiding. And in that moment, you say, internally, quietly, finally, I am doing this. Not, I am going to try. Not, I am going to see. I am doing this. And you mean it. Not because you are certain it will work. Not because you have overcome the fear. But because you are tired of not doing it. Because the cost of another year of waiting has become more unbearable than the risk of starting. That is the decision. And it has to be made before you feel ready. That is the entire point. Look at the people who have made this decision, not the famous ones, the ones in your actual life. Think about someone you know who quit a job that was killing them and built something they were proud of. Think about someone who left a relationship that was wrong and rebuilt their life. Think about someone who dealt with a health crisis and came out different on the other side. Think about how they talk about it now. There is almost always a sentence that sounds something like, I just decided. I don't know exactly when. But something clicked and I just decided. They are not describing a process. They are describing a threshold. The moment action potential fired. You have been waiting for that moment to happen to you. But here is the hard truth, for most people, it does not happen to them. It has to be chosen. The decision is not a feeling you wait for, it is a choice you make in the absence of the feeling. Think about it like jumping into cold water. You are standing at the edge of a lake in October. The water is freezing. Your friends are already in. They are telling you it is fine. You know logically that once you are in, the cold becomes manageable. You know you will adjust. You know the shock is temporary. You know all of this. And you are still standing at the edge, waiting for the fear to subside before you jump. The fear does not subside while you are standing there. It grows. The longer you stand at the edge, the bigger the jump becomes. The only way the fear reduces is through the act of jumping. Not before. And the decision, the real decision, is not made when you jump. It is made in the 3 seconds before, when you stop negotiating and commit to the momentum of jumping whether or not you feel ready. That 3-second window is what your whole life hinges on. Action today, identify the thing you have been negotiating about. Not managing, not planning, negotiating. The thing where some part of you keeps coming up with reasons why today is not the right day. And make the decision. Not the plan. The decision. Binary. Private. Final. I am doing this. Then do the smallest possible version of it within the next hour. Not tomorrow. Within the hour. Because the decision does not survive the night. It either becomes action in that window, or it becomes another item in the graveyard of things you decided and then didn't. Who you become. Nobody talks about the part that comes after. After the decision. After the start. After the first attempt and the first failure and the first time you realize that what you thought would take 3 months is going to take 3 years. Nobody talks about who you become in that gap. And that gap, that long, uncertain, unglamorous gap, is the actual transformation. We have a cultural obsession with the before and after. The before, stuck, struggling, waiting. The after, arrived, built, changed. The before and after are photographable. They make for clean stories. They make for good content. But the between is where the real work happens. The between is where most people quit. And it is where the person you are meant to become is either built or abandoned. Here is what the between actually looks like. You started. Good. Week 1, you have momentum, the decision is fresh, the energy is real, the newness itself is fuel. Week 3, the newness is gone. The results have not arrived yet. You are doing the work without the feedback loop that makes the work feel worth it. This is the dip. Every meaningful pursuit has one. The dip is not a sign that you chose wrong. The dip is the filter. It is the mechanism that separates the people who transform from the people who collect abandoned starts. Think about what happens to a blacksmith making a blade. The iron goes into the forge. It gets heated past the point where iron behaves like iron, past the point of comfort, past the point of its own structural preference, until it becomes malleable. Then it gets struck. Repeatedly. Shaped under impact. Then quenched in water, a violent temperature drop that locks the new shape into permanence. The blade is not formed during the comfortable parts. It is formed in the heat, the striking, and the cold. Remove any part of that process and you do not have a blade. You have soft, useless metal. You are the metal. The version of you who starts the business and then pulls back at the first difficulty, that person is not forged. The iron went into the heat and came back out before the temperature changed it. The version of you who has the first hard conversation and then retreats to comfortable distance, not forged. The version of you who begins the discipline and then gives it a month and stops, not forged. The transformation requires you to stay in the heat long enough to become malleable. And then survive the striking. And then survive the quench. Nobody tells you this when they sell you on transformation. You have to become someone different before you arrive at the destination. Not at the destination. On the way there. The discipline changes you before the results arrive. The repetition changes your relationship to effort before the results confirm it was worth it. The commitment changes your identity before the outcome validates the commitment. You have to become the person who would have those results before you have them. And the only way to become that person is to do the things that person does, without the results, without the validation, without the proof that it is working, long enough that it actually starts working. This is why people who quit in the dip never understand why they keep quitting. They think the problem is the goal. They change the goal. They set a new one. Same dip. Same exit. The problem was never the goal. The problem is that they have not learned how to stay in the heat. And here is the part that should give you pause: who you become in the between is permanent. You do not get to unlearn it. You do not get to unlearn the discipline. You do not get to unlearn the capacity for discomfort. The person who built something hard is different from the person who read about building something hard. Not just in what they have. In who they are. In how they think. In what they can tolerate. In what their body does when it encounters resistance, whether it contracts or whether it leans in. Every day you spend in the between is a day you are becoming someone who can survive the between. And that person who can function in uncertainty, who can work without the reward, who can stay committed without the confirmation, that person can build almost anything. Because the skills that got them through one hard pursuit transfer to every hard pursuit after it. Think about the person in your life who seems to handle everything. Who keeps going when things fall apart. Who does not collapse when the plan changes. Who faces difficulty with a steadiness that seems almost unfair. You probably attribute this to personality. To temperament. To some innate quality they were born with. But look closer at their history. That person went through something that required them to stay in the heat. And they stayed. And it changed them. That steadiness is not a personality trait. It is a forged quality. Built in the between of something hard. That is what is waiting for you on the other side of starting and staying. Not just the result you are pursuing. The person you will permanently be. Action today. If you are already in the between, already in the dip, already wondering if you should quit, do not quit today. Not because the goal is definitely right. But because quitting today, in the dip, guarantees that you do not become the person who could have finished. Stay today. Just today. Tomorrow can be its own decision. Today, stay in the heat. Now move. We have been here long enough. We have talked about the trap. We have dismantled the readiness lie. We have found the one decision. We have looked at who you become. And now there is only one thing left. It is the only thing that has ever mattered. It is the only thing that separates the people who transform from the people who know everything about transformation. You move. Not later. Not after this video. Not after you think about it, sleep on it, discuss it with someone, make sure the conditions are right. You move now. This is the moment. This is the only moment that has ever existed. The past is gone. The future doesn't exist yet. There is only now, and what you do in it. I want you to think about something. Think about the last time you were proud of yourself. Not complimented. Not validated. Proud. Internally, privately, genuinely proud of yourself. Sit with that for a second. What had you done? I can almost guarantee it was not something you did when you felt perfectly ready. It was something you did when you were scared, or uncertain, or exhausted, or unsure, and you did it anyway. The pride came from the gap between how you felt and what you did. That gap is what makes pride possible. Pride without difficulty is just relief. It is the gap, between fear and action, that creates the feeling you are actually after. You are not after the result. You think you are after the result. But what you are actually after is the feeling of being the kind of person who does the hard thing. The result is the proof of that. But the feeling, that quiet, solid, unshakable sense of self-respect, that comes from the doing. And here is what I need you to understand about right now, about this exact moment in your life. the version of you that you have been waiting for is not coming. I said it at the beginning and I need you to hear it now, at the end, with everything we have talked about between us. That person, the one who was almost ready, the one who was going to start next month, the one who was going to have it together by now, they are gone. They are not gone because you failed them. They are gone because time does not wait. Because every day that passes without a decision is a decision. Because the person who could have started last year is gone, and the person who could have started last month is gone, and the person who should start today is still here, barely, but tomorrow they will be gone too. You have a window. Not an infinite window. Not a comfortable window. A window that is open right now, in this moment, and it will not stay open. Think about the people who never move. Not the people who try and fail, those people I respect completely, because they learn and they grow and they build regardless of the outcome. I mean the people who never move. Think about what happens to them over time. Not dramatically. Quietly. The life narrows. The possibilities that felt open at 25 feel closed at 35. Not because life closed them, because they were never walked through. An open door that you never walked through eventually closes. Not because someone shuts it. Because that is what doors do when no one moves through them. And what happens to the person who stays inside? They become very good at describing the door. They know its dimensions. They know what they would do when they walk through it. They have stories about almost walking through it. They have opinions about the people who walked through it and failed. They become experts in everything about the door except the most important thing, walking through it. Do not be that person. You already know too much. You have read the books. You have watched the content. You have thought the thoughts. Information is not your bottleneck. Action is your bottleneck. And the only solution to an action bottleneck is action. Not more information. Not more preparation. Not more conversations about what you might do. Action. Here is what I want you to do right now. Not in a minute. Right now. Think of one specific thing, one thing, that you have been delaying. Not a category. Not a general area. One specific thing. The business idea you have been researching for 18 months without registering. The conversation you need to have that you have been scripting for 3 months without sending. The application you have not submitted. The appointment you have not made. The call you have not returned. The work you have not started. One thing. Now ask yourself, what is the smallest possible first action that would make this real? Not the whole thing. The first action. The one that would make it real enough that you could not pretend you haven't started. For the business, open the registration page. Just open it. For the conversation, send the first sentence. Just the first sentence. For the application, open the document. Fill in your name. For the appointment, pick up the phone. Dial the number. For the work, open the file. Write one line. That is it. That is the whole instruction. That one action, taken now, is the difference between the person you have been and the person you are becoming. That single movement, small, unglamorous, terrifying in its smallness, is the beginning of everything you say you want. The person you are waiting to become has been waiting for you. Not in the future. In the work you keep not doing. In the conversation you keep not having. In the decision you keep not making. They are built from actions. They exist only through action. And you are one action away from them right now. Not a plan. Not a resolution. Not a decision to decide next week. One action. Now. Here is the truth I want to leave you with. It is the truth I started with, and it is the truth that needs to be the last thing in your head when this ends. The version of you that was almost ready, they are gone. They are not coming. You have been waiting for a person who no longer exists. But here, in this moment, a new version is possible. Not the one who waited. the one who moved. And the only difference between those two versions of you is what happens in the next 5 minutes. Not the next year. Not the next chapter. The next 5 minutes, the choice you make right now about whether you close this and wait again, or whether you close this and move. You have already spent enough time watching people build things while you prepared to build things. You already know enough. You are already enough. The person you are waiting to be is not ahead of you. They are behind the first action you take toward them. Move. Now. Before the feeling passes. Before the momentum disappears. Before the version of you who is ready to start today becomes another ghost in the graveyard of almost. Move. Subscribe. At LifeForge Motivations, we post every week. Stop calling it overthinking. You are not overthinking. You are avoiding. And there is a massive difference, because one has a cure and the other does not. Overthinking is when your brain is actually processing something. It is when you are examining angles, testing hypotheses, walking through scenarios because the problem genuinely requires that kind of depth. Overthinking means you are engaged. Overthinking means your mind is working on something real. Avoidance is something else entirely. Avoidance is when you are thinking in circles, not spirals. You are covering the same ground over and over. You are generating questions you already know the answer to. You are creating new angles not because they matter but because looking at new angles feels productive while you sit still and do nothing. The proof is simple. I am going to tell you how to know the difference, and once you know, you cannot unknow it. Once you see it, you will see it everywhere, especially in yourself. Here is the thing about real overthinking, it has momentum. It moves you closer to a decision. Every time you think about something that matters, you gather one more piece of information. One more variable gets sorted. One more fear gets named or debunked. Real thinking is directional. It points somewhere. When you are actually overthinking a big decision, you can feel yourself moving through it. On Monday you are terrified of X. By Wednesday you realize X does not matter as much as Y. By Friday you have accepted Y but realized you can actually manage it. That is overthinking. That is your brain doing its job. Avoidance never moves you. It is a hamster wheel. You are running fast but you are exactly where you started. You think about the same 3 fears. You generate new reasons why now is not the time. You convince yourself you need more information, but the information you are looking for does not exist. You need it to exist so you have permission to wait. And you wait. The promise I am making you right now is this: by the end of this speech, you will understand exactly which one you are doing in this moment. Not theoretically. Specifically. You will know what you are actually avoiding. You will see the fear under the thinking. And more importantly, you will understand that avoidance has a very specific cure, and it is not more thinking. Here is the plan. We are going through 5 stages of understanding. First, I am going to show you exactly how the overthinking lie works. Second, I am going to walk you through the actual mechanism of the avoidance loop. Third, we are going to name your specific fear. Fourth, I am going to show you the break, the actual moment where the loop stops. And fifth, we are going to talk about starting now, today, before this is over. The overthinking lie. You learned this language somewhere. Somebody taught you to call it overthinking, and you believed them because it sounded intelligent. Overthinking sounds like a sophisticated problem. It sounds like something a thoughtful person would do. It sounds like a sign of intelligence. Your brain is so active, so analytical, that sometimes it gets tangled up in its own power. That is a lie. Overthinking is not a sign of intelligence. It is not a prerequisite for being thoughtful. Some of the smartest people I know make decisions fast. Some of the most thoughtful people I know trust their gut. The smartest people I know are not the ones in their own heads the longest. They are the ones who can make clean decisions and move on. But here is where you got confused. There is a grain of truth in the overthinking narrative. It is possible to waste mental energy. It is possible to think about something longer than is useful. But that is not what is happening when you are actually avoiding something. When you are avoiding, you are not wasting extra thinking. You are replacing action with thinking. Let me be very specific because this matters. Let us say you are avoiding a conversation with your boss about your salary. You are genuinely not sure if now is the right time. You are thinking about it. You are imagining the conversation. You are running scenarios. And you tell yourself you are overthinking. You are being thorough. You are getting ready. But you are not. Here is the test: if you are overthinking, you can name the specific decision you are overthinking. You can point to it. Overthinking looks like two real options where you are genuinely torn. You can articulate both sides. Avoidance looks different. Avoidance looks like you are gathering information for a decision that is not actually the decision you need to make. You are thinking about whether the timing is right. You are thinking about whether you have prepared enough. But the actual decision, whether to have the conversation or not, that is already made. Avoidance always looks like you are preparing for a decision when actually you are avoiding making the decision itself. Here is another way to know: real overthinking has endpoints. At some point, if you are genuinely thinking something through, you reach a decision point. You cannot think anymore because all the thinking has been done. With avoidance, there are no endpoints. There are always more angles. There is always another thing to consider. This is why people avoid and call it overthinking. Because if it is overthinking, you are not the problem. Your brain is too good. If it is avoidance, you are the problem. You are afraid. And admitting you are afraid is harder than telling yourself you are just a thoughtful person who needs to think more. I am telling you it is an excuse. You are not an overthinker. You are an avoider who is not admitting what you are avoiding. And the moment you make that switch, the moment you stop calling it overthinking and start calling it avoidance, everything changes. Because avoidance has a cure. Avoidance gets solved by doing the thing. The avoidance loop. Here is how it works. You have something you need to do. Let us call it X. It could be a conversation. It could be starting something. It could be ending something. It could be admitting something. It could be trying something where you might fail. X is real. X is sitting there waiting for you. The second you recognize X is something you need to do, your brain triggers a fear response. Not always. Sometimes X is fine and you just do it. But when X matters, when X has consequences, when X could change things, when X could hurt, when X could expose you, your brain floods you with a reason to wait. The reason is always logical. It always sounds intelligent. It is never "I am scared." It is always "now is not the right time," or "I need more information," or "I should prepare better." Your brain is creative. It generates 1,000 reasons why waiting is the smart move. The reason feels true because it is partially true. There is usually some grain of validity. Maybe you do need some information. The trap is that your brain is using that grain of truth to justify the entire structure of waiting. So you wait. And while you wait, you think about X constantly. You think about it in the shower. You think about it when you wake up at 3 in the morning. Your brain will not let go of X because X is unresolved. And here is the mechanism: you interpret this constant thinking as evidence that you are overthinking. You tell yourself, "See, I am so in my head about this." But what you are actually experiencing is anxiety. You are experiencing the discomfort of knowing something needs to happen and not doing it. Your brain is generating noise to cover the guilt of not acting. So you do what the overthinking story tells you to do. You think more. You research more. And you feel a little better, not because you are actually getting closer to doing X, but because you are doing something. Preparing feels like progress. Researching feels like progress. It is not progress. It is busy work. Meanwhile, the deadline creeps closer. And this creates more anxiety. Which creates more thinking. Which creates more reasons to wait. The loop tightens. Here is where it gets dark. Your brain, in its desperation to make you feel okay, will start sabotaging the thing you are supposed to do. If you are avoiding starting something, your brain will start criticizing the idea. It will point out flaws. It will raise new concerns. It will convince you that maybe you do not want to do this after all. Your brain is not giving you reality. Your brain is giving you a negotiation. It is saying, if I can convince you this thing is bad, then you do not have to do it, and you will not have to feel scared. And sometimes it works. Sometimes you convince yourself the thing is actually a bad idea, and you drop it, and you feel relief. That relief is so strong that it confirms everything. You tell yourself, see, I was right to avoid it. But that is never true. That is your brain protecting itself. The avoidance loop is fear, distraction through thinking, more anxiety, sabotage, relief. And then a new X appears, and it starts again. This is your life if you do not break it. Your specific fear. I want you to think right now about something you are avoiding. Not theoretically. Something real. Something happening in your actual life right now that you are not doing. You probably know what it is. There is probably something in your chest tightening right now. That tightening is real. That is not overthinking. That is avoidance. Now I want you to go deeper. I want you to identify the specific fear. Not the excuse your brain gave you. The fear. Are you afraid of rejection? Are you afraid of failure? Are you afraid of success? Are you afraid of disapproval? Are you afraid of being seen? Are you afraid of being found out? Let me be specific with each one because I want you to recognize yourself. If you are afraid of rejection, your brain is telling you that it is better to never try than to try and be told no. But rejection is not dangerous. Rejection is just information. No is a person saying this is not for them right now. And somehow you have decided that this is so unbearable that you will do literally anything to avoid hearing it. So you do not ask. You do not apply. You do not submit. You protect yourself by never putting yourself in a position to be rejected. And then you live in a smaller life. If you are afraid of failure, your brain is telling you that trying and falling short is worse than not trying at all. But everyone fails. Everyone. The people you admire most have failed more than you have. They have just kept going. The failure itself is not the problem. The failure is information. But you have decided that failure is humiliation. So you prepare instead. You research. You wait for the moment when it is impossible to fail. That moment does not exist. If you are afraid of success, this one is sneaky. Your brain is telling you that if you actually succeed at this thing, your life will change. And change is scary. You will have new responsibilities. People will have different expectations. You will have to keep going. And you have decided that protecting your current life is more important than growing. If you are afraid of disapproval, your brain is telling you that other people's opinions matter more than your own path. That it is better to do what is expected than what you want. But approval is actually a cage. You have decided that the discomfort of disappointing someone is worse than the cost of not being yourself. The specific fear does not matter as much as the fact that you have one. The fact that you have identified it means you can now deal with it directly instead of dealing with it sideways through endless thinking. The break. There is a moment where the loop stops. There is a specific place where avoidance ends. It is not when you feel like it. It is not when you are ready. It is not when you have thought enough. It is when you decide that continuing to avoid costs more than doing the thing. That is it. That is the break. That is the moment. It is a simple calculation. You realize that the pain of avoidance is greater than the pain of action. You realize that thinking about it is worse than doing it. You realize that the discomfort of waiting is bigger than the discomfort of trying. And when that realization happens, you do not negotiate anymore. You do not think more. You move. But this moment does not come automatically. You do not just wake up one day and suddenly feel ready. This moment comes from a decision. It comes from you deciding that enough is enough. It comes from you valuing your own future more than you value your current comfort. The break always looks the same. It is you doing something before you are ready. It is you moving before you feel confident. It is you choosing action over certainty. It is you saying, I am scared and I am doing it anyway. This is what separates people who change their lives and people who do not. It is not intelligence. It is not talent. It is not timing. It is the willingness to feel uncomfortable in service of something that matters. The break happens when you text them. When you send the email. When you make the call. When you start. When you choose yourself. Here is the mechanism of the break. You do the thing before you are ready. You feel scared. You feel exposed. You feel vulnerable. And then something happens. The world does not end. The person does not leave. The failure does not define you. The rejection does not destroy you. Life continues. You continue. And in that gap between taking action and the catastrophe that did not come, something shifts. You realize that the fear was bigger than the actual consequence. You realize that avoidance was protecting you from something that did not even happen. Then the next time you need to do something scary, the fear is still there, but it is smaller. You know now that scary does not mean dangerous. You have got evidence. You have done it. You survived. Start now. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not when you have more information. Not when the timing is better. Now. Right now, I want you to identify the thing you are avoiding. Say it out loud. Not in your head. Out loud. Let yourself hear it. You know what it is. You have known the whole time. You know the conversation you are avoiding. You know the email you are not sending. You know the person you are not calling. You know the thing you are not starting. Say it. Do it now. Because here is what is going to happen if you do not. You are going to feel motivated for about 20 minutes. You are going to think about what you heard. You are going to feel like tomorrow is going to be different. But tomorrow will come and you will find a reason why today is not the right day. And a week from now, you will feel worse than you feel now because you will know you are capable of understanding this and you are still not doing it. That is the real problem with avoidance. It is not that it feels bad. It is that once you see it, and you keep doing it anyway, you lose trust in yourself. You prove to yourself that your fear is bigger than your integrity. Do not let that happen. Do something right now. Not a perfect thing. Not the final thing. Just the first thing. Just the move that breaks the loop. If you are avoiding a conversation, send a message right now. Not a perfect message. A message that says, can we talk about something? I have been thinking about X and I want to discuss it with you. Send it now while your courage is up. If you are avoiding starting something, do the smallest first step right now. Open a blank document. Write one sentence. Do 10 push-ups. Fill out the first field of the application. Do the tiniest possible first move. Because once you have started, the loop is broken. The fear you are feeling right now is not a sign that you should not do this. The fear is a sign that this matters. You are not an overthinker. You are someone who has decided that comfort is more important than growth, and you are dressing it up in intellectual language to make it feel respectable. I am calling you on it. You can change this right now. Not by thinking more clearly. By doing something while you are unclear. Stop calling it overthinking. Start calling it avoidance. And then stop avoiding. Subscribe. At LifeForge Motivations, we post every week. There was a period in my life where everything fell apart at once. And I genuinely believed I was being punished. I was wrong. That season built every single thing I have now. Not fixed. Built. There is a difference. I am going to prove that to you in the next 40 minutes. Not with platitudes. Not with it all happens for a reason spiritual bypassing. With real mechanics of how hardship actually works in the human body, mind, and character. You are going to see your season differently by the end of this. Not because I am good at motivation. But because I am going to show you what is actually happening to you right now. Here is what I am going to deliver. First, proof. I am going to show you how hard seasons create rather than destroy. Not inspiration, proof. Second, a promise. By the time we are done, you will see your season differently. You will still hurt. But you will hurt with direction. And third, a plan. 5 chapters. Each one a layer of understanding. We will look at what this season actually is. Why it is hurting this much. What is being forged inside you right now. How to use it. And what the other side actually looks like. What this season is. A hard season is not a malfunction. It is not a glitch in the universe. It is not punishment. It is a construction project. You know how a building does not go up in a straight line. It tears down. It digs. It goes down before it goes up. And everyone watching thinks something is wrong. And nothing is wrong. Everything is proceeding exactly as it should. Your season is the same. Most people experience hardship like they are being attacked. Like life is against them. Like the universe is saying no. And that lens is poisonous because it makes you passive. It makes you reactive. It makes you a victim of what is happening instead of a student of it. But what if this season has a structure? What if there are phases? What if what you are experiencing right now is actually a specific stage of development? This is the foundation stage. In a foundation stage, you do not see the building. You see rubble. You see excavation. You see backwards movement. But that is what foundations require. They require going down. They require removing what was weak. They require pressure. The pressure you are feeling right now is not punishment. It is compression. And compression is how soft things become strong. Take a piece of coal. It is buried under pressure for millions of years. The pressure does not destroy it. The pressure builds it into a diamond. The coal did not do anything wrong. The pressure was not punishment. It was transformation. You are being pressurized right now. And I know that feels like destruction. But it is not. It is specification. Here is what happens in a hard season that does not happen in a comfortable one. You are forced to get specific. You cannot coast. You cannot use vagueness as a strategy. When everything is easy, you do 10 things at 50%. You say yes to noise. You maintain relationships you do not actually value. You pursue goals you do not actually want. Hard seasons burn away the ambiguity. Suddenly you cannot do 10 things. So you get ruthless. You pick one. And that focus is the first structural element of strength. This season is also showing you who you are. Not who you think you are. Not who you want to be. Who you actually are when the pressure is on. That is uncomfortable. Because sometimes what you see is not what you want to see. Maybe you see that you panic. Maybe you see that you are weak in a place you thought you were strong. But that knowledge, that clarity, is invaluable. Because you cannot build anything real on a lie about yourself. This season is the truth. This season is you without the costume. This season is also an interview. The universe is asking you a question. Not whether you are capable. Whether you care. Whether you are willing to pay what a worthwhile thing costs. Most people want the result without the season. They want the diamond without the pressure. Those people never actually get what they say they want. But you are here. You are in the season. You are not running. That means you are answering yes to a deeper question. You are saying, I want something enough to hurt for it. Why it hurts this much? You are not hurt because you are weak. You are hurt this much because you are growing. Pain is the signal of change. No pain, no growth. Not because pain is necessary philosophically, but because growth requires expansion. An expansion of something packed tight always hurts. Think about getting stronger physically. You lift weights. Micro tears form in your muscles. That damage is what triggers growth. If you never damaged anything, you would never get stronger. Emotional and mental growth works the same way. You are expanding. You are becoming capable of carrying things you could not carry before. And that expansion is uncomfortable. It is disorienting. It is painful. The magnitude of the pain tells you something important. You are not just adjusting. You are transforming. This is not a 5% change. This is a 30, 40, 50% reconstruction of who you are. Of what you are capable of. Of what you believe about yourself. That kind of change does not hurt a little. It hurts a lot. But here is why people get this wrong. They think the pain means they are doing something wrong. So they stop. They back off the pressure. They settle for a smaller version of growth that does not hurt as much. And then they wonder why they never change. You cannot have the change without the pain. Not this kind of change. Not the kind that actually matters. The hurt is also this much because you are grieving. Even if it is a season you chose, even if it is a season that is building you, you are losing something. You are losing the person you were. You are losing the life you had. You are losing certainty. And grief is heavy. It is legitimate. Both things are true at the same time. This season is building you. And this season is taking something from you. You also hurt this much because you are alone in it. Not literally. But emotionally. There is an isolation in hardship that is specific. Because the people around you who have not been through it cannot actually hold it with you. They can be kind. They can be present. But they cannot know what it feels like. So you carry the weight partly alone. And that solitude makes the weight feel heavier than it is. The pain is also this much because you are confronting your limits for the first time. Or maybe not the first time. But in a real way. You are finding the edge of what you are capable of. And that is frightening. Because before this, you thought the edge was further away. Now it is real. And it is closer than you want it to be. And you are learning that you are not infinite. And that is humbling. And humbling hurts. The hurt is the friction of incomplete integration. You are trying to build a story that is not finished yet. But you are already becoming the person who can carry this. And that person is unfamiliar. And your system does not trust unfamiliar. So there is resistance. There is doubt. There is the voice saying, I do not know if I can do this. And that voice is correct. The you that you were cannot do this. That you is gone. The person who can do this is someone new. And you are meeting them for the first time in this season. And that meeting is terrifying. What is being forged? You are being forged into specificity. That vague version of yourself that exists in easy times is burning away. What is left is precise. Honed. Clear about what actually matters and what does not. You know what kills potential. Diffusion. You have 17 goals. You pursue all of them half-heartedly. You maintain 90 relationships, none of which actually feed you. You are available to 1,000 calls on your attention and you respond to all of them. And nothing actually develops. Nothing becomes real. This season is forcing specialization. It is forcing you to decide what is essential and what is not. And that ruthlessness, that ability to say no to good things for the sake of great things, that is what separates people who build something real from people who stay scattered. You are also being forged into resilience. Not as a concept. As a physical capability. Resilience is your nervous system's ability to return to baseline after stress. It is your capacity to take a hit and keep moving. And it is developed the same way everything is developed, through practice under pressure. Every time you feel like giving up and do not. Every time you want to run and instead you turn back to face what is in front of you. Every time you feel pain and you keep moving anyway. You are building neural pathways. You are training your body to understand that this is survivable. That you can do hard things. 3 years from now, you will not remember most of this season. But your body will. Your body will know it survived something that broke you open. You are being forged into compassion. Not the kind you perform. The kind that is real. Because you are learning what it feels like to be broken. To be desperate. To be genuinely unsure you will make it. And that knowledge wipes away arrogance. It wipes away judgment. When you meet someone struggling after this season, you will not think they are weak. You will know what strength actually looks like. And it does not look like never falling apart. It looks like falling apart and getting back up anyway. You are also being forged into autonomy. This season is showing you that you cannot rely on others to fix it. You cannot rely on rescue. You have to move alone. And that loneliness is agony while it is happening. But what it builds is someone who does not need conditions to be perfect to act. Someone who does not need approval to move. Someone who can sit with uncertainty and act anyway. That person is free in a way that comfortable people will never understand. You are being forged into awareness. Before this season, you had a story about yourself. I am this person. I can do that. I cannot do this. That story was never tested. Now it is being demolished. And what is being rebuilt is actually true. Because it has been pressure tested. Because it has been verified in real conditions. You know more about yourself right now than you did 6 months ago. You know what you actually believe when it is hard to believe. You know what you actually value when you cannot have everything. And that self-knowledge is worth everything. Use the season. Stop trying to get through this season as fast as possible. Stop treating it like something to endure. Stop waiting for permission to heal. Because this season is a gift, and you are wasting it by just trying to survive it. Here is what to do instead. Use it to become intentional. You are already isolated. You are already slowed down. You are already forced to be selective. So instead of fighting that, swim with it. Use the slow down to think. Real thinking. Not the surface chatter your brain does in normal times. Deep thinking about who you actually want to be. What actually matters. What you are willing to live for. Write it down. Because if you can name it, you can build toward it. Use this season to build a practice. A practice of being the person you are becoming. Not someday. Now. What does a resilient person do? Do that now, even if you do not feel resilient yet. You do not have to feel it first. You can act your way into it. Pick one thing. One discipline. Something small that you can do every day. That you actually do every day. Because that repetition is where real change lives. Not in the big decisions. In the small decisions you make again and again. Use this season to burn away relationships that are not real. You do not have time for theater right now. You do not have energy for people who do not actually show up. Let them go. Not with drama. Just with honesty. Protect the people who show up. Let everyone else become a wider circle. Because you need a small group of real humans, not a large group of performing humans. Use this season to study your triggers. What makes you panic? What makes you want to escape? Where do you feel powerless? Write it down. Look at it. Not to shame yourself. To understand yourself. Because if you know what triggers you, you can prepare for it. You can build capacity before you are triggered. Use this season to build something. Not something big. Something real. Something that matters to you. Maybe it is art. Maybe it is a skill. Maybe it is a business you have been thinking about. The thing you make does not matter as much as the fact that you are making something. Because creation is the antidote to destruction. When everything is falling apart, making something says, I still have agency. I still have the power to bring something into existence. Use this season to forgive yourself. Not other people. You. You for not being enough before. You for not seeing this coming. You for not being able to prevent it. You for being human and limited and capable of mistakes. The person you were when you made whatever choices led here, forgive them. They were doing the best they could with what they knew. And this season will teach you what they could not know. The other side. You are going to come out of this. Not unchanged. Not back to before. Different. Heavier. Deeper. Surer. Better. The other side does not look like what you think it looks like. It is not all light. It is not all happy. It is not all resolved. There is a kind of residue from a hard season. There are moments when it will hit you again, the memory of how close you were to the edge. The understanding of how fragile everything actually is. That does not go away completely. But what happens is this. The residue becomes useful. You become someone who appreciates things in a way other people do not. People who have not been broken become grateful when things go well. You become grateful for the capacity to continue when things are hard. You become grateful for the people who stayed. You become grateful for your own strength in a way that is not arrogant. It is just honest knowledge of what you are capable of. You become someone who can sit with other people's pain without rushing to fix it. Because you know now that pain does not always want fixing. Sometimes it wants witnessing. Sometimes it wants company. And you are the kind of person who can offer that because you have been in the dark and you know what helps. You become someone who can tell the difference between real problems and noise. Because you have been in a real problem. And you know what it tastes like. So the small annoyances do not drag you under anymore. They just move through you. You have perspective now. Earned perspective. You become someone who does not need permission anymore. Because you have already lived through the worst thing and here you are. Still moving. So what permission are you waiting for? You become someone who trusts their own capacity. Not arrogantly. But solidly. Because you have tested yourself and you did not shatter. You bent. You nearly broke. But you did not shatter. So now you know. I can do hard things. I can survive difficult things. I can keep going when it feels impossible. That knowledge is unshakable. That is the gift of the other side. I know you are in it right now. I know it does not feel like building. It feels like breaking. But the breaking and the building are the same thing. The foundation requires the excavation. The diamond requires the pressure. The person you are becoming requires the season. You are not being punished. You are being built. Subscribe, at LifeForge Motivations, we post every week. Everything you want in your life is on the other side of the thing that scares you most. That is not a coincidence. That is the architecture of growth. I am going to show you why fear is not your enemy. I am going to prove to you that fear is actually a compass. And by the time you are done watching this, you are going to stop running from the thing that terrifies you, and you are going to run toward it instead. Here is what I am proving to you in the next 40 minutes. Fear correlates with importance. The bigger the fear, the bigger the opportunity. This is not motivational fluff. This is biology. This is how humans are built. Here is the promise. You will never see fear the same way again. You are going to stop interpreting it as a warning sign that you should turn back. You are going to interpret it as a signal that you are about to grow. That is not a small shift. That changes everything. Here is the plan. 5 chapters. Chapter 1, what fear actually is, not the feeling, but the mechanism. Chapter 2, the compass principle, how to read it. Chapter 3, the ones who went anyway, real people who walked into their fear and what happened. Chapter 4, how to use it, the actual process. Chapter 5, now, what you do when you leave this. What fear actually is. Fear is not an emotion. It is an alarm system. Your body does not make a distinction between a tiger and a difficult conversation with your boss, so it treats both the same way. Blood leaves your extremities. Your heart rate spikes. Cortisol floods your system. Your thinking narrows. This is not a bug. This is a feature. For 200,000 years, this system kept your ancestors alive. The ones who felt fear when they heard a rustling in the bushes survived. You are descended from people who were terrified of the right things at the right time. Fear is in your DNA. It is not something you got wrong. It is something you inherited from the strongest people in your bloodline. But here is where it gets complicated. Your brain has not updated its threat assessment in about 50,000 years. You have the same nervous system as a person standing on the savannah, but you are using it to evaluate whether you should send an email, whether you should ask someone out, whether you should start a business. So when you feel that spike of fear, your ancient brain is doing its job perfectly. It is saying, this matters. This is important. Do not do this. Your brain is wrong about the threat level. But it is absolutely right about the importance. Fear does not mean danger. Fear means significance. Think about a moment when you felt real fear. Not anxiety. Real, physical fear. Your heart pounding. Your hands shaking. Your mouth dry. What was it about? Was it something trivial? Or was it something that mattered to you? It was something that mattered. That is the pattern. Fear does not attach to things you do not care about. You do not feel fear about whether a stranger in Tokyo likes your haircut. You feel fear about things that matter to you. Your fear is not a malfunction. It is a spotlight. It is pointing at the things that are most important to your life. The people you love most, that is where your deepest fears live. The ambitions that would change everything, that is where terror lives. The version of yourself you actually want to become, that is where your biggest fear is. Most people get this backward. They see the fear and they think, this is telling me not to do this. But the fear is not saying no. The fear is saying, this matters. Pay attention. This is important enough that your entire nervous system is mobilized. The people who do not feel fear about anything are not brave. They are indifferent. Bravery requires fear. Bravery requires that you feel the fear and do the thing anyway. That is the definition. You cannot have one without the other. Most people misinterpret fear as a message to retreat. But fear is information. It is saying, pay attention. This is important. Once you understand that, you can decode the message instead of just obeying it. The compass principle. A compass does not tell you where to go. It tells you which direction is north. Everything else is navigation. You have to decide if you want to go north. But the compass does not lie about what north is. Fear is the same. It is a compass pointing at what matters. The problem is that we have been taught to interpret fear as a warning light. Red light. Danger. Stop. But fear is not the stop light. Fear is the direction indicator. It is showing you where the growth is. Here is how to read the compass. First, localize the fear. Where exactly is it? I am afraid is too vague. I am afraid of rejection from people I respect is useful. I am afraid I do not actually know what I am doing and they will find out is even more useful. The more specific you can get about the fear, the more information it gives you. Second, ask what the fear is protecting. Every fear is protecting something. It is protecting your ego from damage. It is protecting your identity from change. It is protecting you from humiliation or loss or failure. Once you identify what is being protected, you start to understand what matters. If you are terrified of looking stupid, it means intelligence and competence matter to you. If you are terrified of being alone, it means connection matters to you. If you are terrified of wasting your life, it means purpose matters to you. Third, evaluate the actual cost. This is where most people's fear compass goes haywire. Your ancient brain is saying, if you do this, you might die. Your rational brain needs to ask, what is the actual worst-case scenario? Usually it is not death. It is embarrassment. It is a short-term loss. It is someone being disappointed in you. It is trying something and it not working out. That is not actually the end of your life. That is a bump. And on the other side of that bump is growth. The compass principle says, the things you are most afraid of are pointing at the things that matter most. Not always. Sometimes fear is just anxiety. Sometimes it is trauma response. But consistently, the biggest fears in a person's life are pointing at the biggest opportunities. Here is a test. Think about the top 3 fears in your life right now. Not the surface-level anxiety. The deep fears. The ones that wake you up at 3 in the morning. The ones that make you feel small. For each one, ask, what would my life look like if I faced this? What would change? Who would I become? The answers to those questions are showing you your actual potential. That is not a coincidence. That is the compass working. The ones who went anyway. Every person who ever built something that mattered was afraid. This is not a motivational claim. This is documented reality. The founders who changed industries. The creators who built movements. The ordinary people who made extraordinary decisions. Every single one of them felt the fear. None of them bypassed it. The only difference between them and everyone else is that they interpreted the fear as a compass instead of a stop sign. When they felt the fear, they did not turn back. They leaned in. They asked, what is this fear pointing at? What matters here? What would it mean to walk through this? And they walked through it. Let me tell you about someone who went anyway. She was a professional with a stable career. She was good at it. She made good money. She had security. But she was dying inside. She wanted something different. She wanted to build something of her own. She was terrified. She was years into her career. She had obligations. She had built an entire identity around what she did. If she quit, what would she be? Who would she become? What if she failed? She spent 2 years sitting in that fear. 2 years doing work she did not believe in. 2 years telling herself she could not do it. 2 years getting smaller. Then one day, she asked herself, what if I am not afraid because this is a bad idea? What if I am afraid because this matters? And she changed. She made the leap. It was harder than anything she had done. It was scary. It was uncertain. But on the other side was the life she actually wanted to live. She did not eliminate fear. She upgraded it. She moved it from fear of change to fear of mediocrity. And her life changed. Here is another story. He wanted to start a company. He had an idea he believed in. But the fear was immobilizing. What if the market did not want what he built? What if he spent 2 years on it and it failed? What if he lost all his savings? But he had a realization. He said, I am going to be afraid anyway. I am going to be afraid if I do it, and I am going to be afraid if I do not do it. So I might as well be afraid while building something. So he started while still working. He was still terrified. But he was terrified while moving. And that is the difference. His company became real. It became profitable. It employed people. And more importantly, it proved to him that he could do the thing he was most afraid of. He walked into the fire and he did not burn. He transformed. This is the pattern. The ones who went anyway did not have more courage than you. They did not have less fear than you. They had a different relationship with fear. They saw it as information instead of instruction. They saw it as a sign of importance instead of a sign of danger. And here is what nobody tells you. Once you do the thing you are most afraid of, everything else gets easier. Not because you become fearless, but because you have proof. You have evidence in your own life that you can walk into fear and come out the other side. That proof changes you. How to use it. This is the practical part. This is where you take everything about fear being a compass and you actually use it. Step 1, name it specifically. Do not say I am afraid. That is too vague. Say, I am afraid of asking for a raise because I believe I do not deserve it. Or I am afraid of starting a business because I might fail and that will mean I am a failure. Or I am afraid of having a difficult conversation because they might get angry with me and that will mean they do not love me. The story underneath the fear is what you need to see. Once you see the story, you can question it. Step 2, calculate the actual risk. What is the actual worst-case scenario? Not the catastrophic spiral your brain will create. The actual, realistic worst-case scenario. You ask for a raise and they say no. You start a business and it fails and you go back to your job. You have a difficult conversation and they are upset for a while but then you work through it. Those are not life-threatening scenarios. Those are uncomfortable scenarios. There is a huge difference. And here is the thing about uncomfortable scenarios. They do not kill you. They change you. Step 3, lower the stakes. You do not have to do the scariest version of the thing. You do not have to go all in on day 1. You can practice. You can test. You can start small. If you are afraid of public speaking, do not start by giving a speech. Start by sharing an idea in a meeting. Start by asking a question in a group setting. Build the capacity slowly. If you are afraid of starting a business, do not quit your job on day 1. Start a side project. Make your first sale while you still have income. Test the hypothesis while you still have a safety net. Lowering the stakes is not cowardice. It is strategy. Step 4, do it anyway. This is the non-negotiable part. You can lower the stakes. You can practice. You can prepare. But at some point, you have to do the thing. You have to make the call. You have to hit send. You have to speak. You have to try. You have to fail. You have to look foolish. You have to be uncertain. Because here is what happens when you do. Your nervous system updates. Your brain gets new information. It learns that the catastrophe you predicted did not happen. It learns that you are capable of handling discomfort. You are literally rewiring your threat assessment system. You are teaching your ancient brain that this is not actually a threat. It is an opportunity. Step 5, expect the fear to stay. This is important. You are not trying to eliminate fear. You are trying to act in spite of it. The fear might not go away. You might feel it the entire time. That is not a failure. That is exactly how it is supposed to work. You make the call with shaky hands. You give the presentation while your heart is pounding. You start the business while feeling the terror. And you do it anyway. That is not courage without fear. That is courage with fear. That is the only kind that matters. The formula is simple. Fear plus action equals growth. Not action without fear. That is recklessness. Not fear without action. That is anxiety. The combination of acknowledging the fear and moving forward anyway, that is where transformation happens. Now, you are going to leave this and you are going to feel different for a little while. You are going to feel pumped. You are going to feel like you can do this. And then something is going to happen. You are going to encounter the thing you are most afraid of. Or you are going to think about it. And the feeling is going to come back. And that feeling is going to feel more real than anything you just heard. So here is what to do in that moment. When the fear comes back, and it will, you are going to remember this. The fear is a compass. Not a stop sign. A compass. It is pointing at something that matters to you. And the fact that it matters is the only reason you are scared. You are going to take that fear and you are going to ask yourself, what would my life look like if I went through this? What would I be capable of? Who would I become? And you are going to sit with that vision for a second. You are going to let it be real. You are going to let it matter. Then you are going to do one thing that scares you. Just one. Today. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Not when the fear goes away. Today. It might be sending an email you have been avoiding. It might be having a conversation you have been putting off. It might be applying for something you do not think you are qualified for. It might be telling someone how you feel. It might be asking for something you want. It might be creating something and putting it into the world. Just one thing. Today. And notice what happens. Notice that you survive it. Notice that you are still standing. Notice that the catastrophe you predicted did not happen. Notice that you did something you thought you could not do. The people who live the lives they want did not get there by being fearless. They got there by being terrified and moving anyway. They got there by understanding that fear is not the enemy. Fear is the compass. Fear is the signal. Fear is the proof that something matters. You have that compass. You have always had it. It has been pointing at your potential the entire time. You just did not know how to read it. Now you do. Move toward it. Subscribe. At LifeForge Motivations, we post every week. Stop comparing yourself to them. You have been looking at their highlight reel and comparing it to your unedited footage. That is not a fair fight. That was never a fair fight. And every second you spend measuring yourself against someone else is a second stolen from building the life that was supposed to be yours. This is the comparison trap. And it does not just steal your joy. It steals your direction. It steals your identity. It steals the years you were supposed to spend becoming who you actually are instead of trying to catch up to someone who is running an entirely different race. Here is what we are covering today. Why comparison feels so natural but is actually destroying you. The math your brain is doing wrong every single time it compares. How to identify the race you are actually supposed to be running. The only comparison that actually builds you. And what it looks like to run your own race fully. The trap is set. You were not born comparing yourself to other people. You learned it. You were taught it in school with grades that ranked you against every other student. You were taught it in sports where winning meant someone else lost. You were taught it in every performance review, every like count, every follower number, every salary disclosure, every house on a street that told you exactly where you stood in the hierarchy. The system trained you to measure yourself against the person next to you. And then it handed you a smartphone so you could do it 24 hours a day. The trap is built into the infrastructure of modern life. And you walked right into it. Most people do. Because comparison does not feel like a trap when you are inside it. It feels like information. It feels like ambition. It feels like staying hungry. You look at what someone else has built and you think that is data about what is possible. And sometimes it is. But most of the time it is just pain wearing the costume of motivation. Here is what actually happens inside the comparison trap. You look at someone further along than you and you feel the gap. Not just the gap in achievement but the gap in worth. Your brain does not say they are ahead of me in this particular metric. Your brain says I am behind. And behind does not mean behind in a race. Behind means insufficient. Behind means less than. Behind means you are failing at life itself. That is the trap. Not the comparison. The conclusion. The math that ruins you. Your brain is doing math every time it compares, and it is doing that math wrong. Here is the equation it runs. You see their result. You compare it to your result. You calculate the gap. You attribute that gap entirely to your own inadequacy. What the equation leaves out is everything that produced their result that you do not have information about. The years of failure before the success you are seeing. The specific circumstances that made their path possible. The support systems, the timing, the luck, the things they sacrificed that you would never sacrifice. The ways in which their success would not even look like success to you if you understood the full picture. You are comparing your entire journey to their highlight reel. You are comparing your starting point to their current location without accounting for when they started, what they started with, and what it cost them to get there. This is not a fair comparison. This is not even a useful comparison. This is a rigged equation that will always make you feel worse and will never make you better. The most dangerous version of this math is comparing your internal life to their external presentation. You know exactly how uncertain you feel, how scared you are, how much you doubt yourself, how messy your life actually is from the inside. And you compare that to the polished external version of their life that they have chosen to show the world. Of course you lose that comparison every time. Everyone loses that comparison every time. Because you are comparing reality to performance. And performance always wins. Whose race are you running? Here is the question that changes everything. Whose race are you running? Not what race are you in. Whose race? Because the race you have been running might not even be yours. You might be sprinting toward a finish line that someone else defined. A version of success that someone else decided was worth wanting. A life that looks impressive from the outside but that you do not actually want from the inside. Most people spend their entire lives running a race that was handed to them. The race toward the salary their parents thought was respectable. The race toward the relationship status their culture decided meant you had made it. The race toward the house, the title, the follower count, the body, the lifestyle that someone in their environment decided was the benchmark of a good life. And they spend every day measuring their progress against people who are running the same externally defined race. And they are exhausted. Not because they are losing. Because they are running for the wrong reasons. The person you keep comparing yourself to might be winning their race. But that does not make their race your race. Their destination might be a place you would not even want to go. Their finish line might look like failure from inside your actual values. You do not know that from looking at their curated life. You only know what they have chosen to show. What do you actually want? Not what you think you should want. Not what would impress the people you have been trying to impress. What would actually constitute a good life by your own internal definition? Most people cannot answer that question cleanly because they have spent so long wanting what they were told to want that they have lost contact with their own desires. The comparison trap does not just steal your progress. It steals your compass. The only comparison that matters. There is one comparison that actually helps you. One comparison that builds instead of destroys. One comparison that gives you real information about real progress on a real journey. And it is the only comparison worth making. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. Not to who someone else is today. Not to who you want to be eventually. Not to some idealized version of yourself that exists only in your imagination. To who you were yesterday. Last week. Last year. Are you more skilled? Are you more disciplined? Are you clearer about what matters? Are you stronger in the places where you used to be weak? Are you doing the work you were avoiding? Are you having the conversations you were postponing? Are you living by the values you said mattered to you? That comparison is honest. That comparison is accurate. That comparison gives you real information about real growth on the only journey you are actually on. And when you make that comparison honestly, most of you will discover something important. You are not as far behind as you thought. Because you have been measuring the wrong distance. You have been measuring the gap between you and them instead of the distance you have traveled yourself. Your growth is real even if it does not look like their growth. Your progress is valid even if it is not visible to anyone else. Your journey is legitimate even if no one is watching it. The comparison that matters is the one that tells you whether you are becoming more of who you are supposed to become. And only you have enough information to make that comparison accurately. Run your own race. Here is what running your own race actually looks like. It looks like making decisions based on your values instead of your image. It looks like setting goals that excite you instead of goals that would impress other people. It looks like measuring your days by whether you move toward the life you actually want instead of whether you moved ahead of someone who is running somewhere else. It looks like deleting the apps or muting the accounts that make you feel like you are constantly behind. Not because you cannot handle the truth but because comparative information from curated sources is not truth. It is noise. It is a signal that is designed to keep you engaged by making you feel insufficient. You do not owe that signal your attention. It looks like talking honestly about where you actually are instead of performing progress for an audience. Because the performance exhausts you and protects nothing. The people who matter do not need your highlight reel. And the people who only engage with your highlight reel do not matter. It looks like celebrating other people's wins without measuring them against your own position. When you can genuinely celebrate someone else's success without it touching your own sense of worth, you are free. That freedom is available to you right now. Not when you achieve more. Not when you catch up. Right now. Because you were never in their race to begin with. The version of you that was supposed to exist is not ahead of someone else. That version is ahead of who you were. That version is running towards something that actually matters to you. That version stopped looking sideways years ago and has been building something real ever since. Start running that version's race today. Subscribe. This is LifeForge. Now forge yourself. The most dangerous place you can live is not the place that scares you. It is the place that stopped scaring you years ago and that you have stayed in ever since. Comfort is not safety. Comfort is the slowest way to become a person who used to have potential. Every person who ever built something real went through a moment, usually many moments, where they chose the harder path when the easier one was right there. Where they stepped into something uncertain when certainty was available. Where they chose the edge over the center. Not because hard is automatically good. Because growth is always uncomfortable. And a life that never challenges you is a life that stopped growing, which is a life that started dying. Here is what we are covering today. What the comfort zone actually is and why it feels like home. What it is costing you to stay inside it. The actual mechanics of how challenge creates growth. What it means to live at the edge of your capability. And how to start choosing hard as a practice rather than an accident. The comfortable trap. The comfort zone is not a place. It is a state. Specifically, it is the state in which your nervous system no longer registers what you are doing as a threat. You have done this enough times that it is automatic. Your brain has categorized it as safe. And safe, to your nervous system, means low priority. Familiar. Routine. Not requiring full engagement. The trap is that this state feels like competence. It feels like mastery. And sometimes it is. But mastery without continued challenge becomes stagnation. The skills that got you here stop sharpening because you stopped needing to sharpen them. The confidence that came from growth starts hollowing because you stopped growing. What felt like arriving starts feeling like being stuck. But by then you have been there long enough that the idea of leaving feels more dangerous than the reality of staying. Here is the deeper trap. The comfort zone expands to fill whatever space you give it. What was once uncomfortable becomes comfortable quickly if you push into it consistently. And what is comfortable shrinks away from you if you stop pushing. Your nervous system recalibrates based on what you actually do, not what you tell yourself you could do. So the person who used to be brave and stopped being challenged will find, months later, that the brave thing feels inaccessible. Not because they lost capability. Because they let the edge drift away from where they are living. Most people do not choose comfort deliberately. They drift into it. They make one safe choice, then another, and another. They avoid the hard conversation one more time. They skip the challenging project for the familiar one. They choose the version of their life that requires less from them and offers predictable returns. And one day they look up and realize the edge of their capability is somewhere they have not visited in years. And they have feelings about that. Not guilt exactly. More like grief. For the person they might have been. For the version of their life that would have required more of them. That grief is real information. It is telling you something about the distance between the life you are living and the life you were capable of living. What comfort costs. Comfort costs you more than you think. The obvious cost is growth. When you stop challenging yourself, you stop developing. The skills you do not use do not stay where they are. They regress. The confidence you do not earn does not hold. It erodes. The version of you that was possible in this life, the most capable version, the most realized version, requires continued challenge to exist. Without it, they drift. Not all at once but steadily, until the gap between who you are and who you could have been becomes the defining feature of your inner life. But there is a deeper cost that most people do not name. Comfort costs you your aliveness. The people who are most fully alive, not happy all the time, alive, are the people who are regularly in contact with their own edges. Who regularly face something that requires more from them than they currently have. Who regularly experience the specific feeling of not knowing whether they can do something and then finding out that they can. That feeling, the feeling of genuine challenge met and survived, is one of the most profound experiences available to a human life. And you cannot feel it from inside your comfort zone. The absence of challenge also costs you your identity. You know who you are by what you are willing to face. By what you have been through. By what you have built and survived and overcome. A life without challenge is a life without the raw material of a self. You may have comfort. You may have stability. But you will not have the deep knowledge of your own capability that only comes from having been tested by something that was not guaranteed. And that knowledge, that bone-deep certainty of what you can handle, is not something you can acquire by staying safe. It only exists on the other side of the hard thing. The growth equation. Here is the actual mechanics of how challenge creates growth. Your nervous system, your muscles, your cognitive architecture, your emotional resilience, all of them operate on the same basic principle. Stress plus recovery equals adaptation. You apply more load than the system can currently handle comfortably. The system experiences strain. The system recovers from the strain. The system rebuilds slightly stronger, slightly more capable, to handle that load more easily next time. Repeat. This is not metaphor. This is biology. Your muscles grow this way. Your cognitive capabilities grow this way. Your emotional resilience grows this way. The system requires overload to adapt. Just enough discomfort to exceed current capacity, followed by recovery. Remove the overload and adaptation stops. Apply overload without recovery and the system breaks. But get the equation right and growth is not just possible. It is automatic. The practical implication is that challenge is not the enemy of a good life. It is the mechanism of a growing one. The discomfort you feel when you step into something hard is not a warning signal. It is the signal that adaptation is being triggered. That growth is happening. That the system is being pushed past its current limits and will rebuild stronger. When you run from that feeling, you run from growth. Every single time. The edge is where you live. The most alive, most capable, most fully realized people you know are people who have made a practice of living at the edge of their current capability. Not past it so often that they break. Not inside it so often that they stagnate. At it. Regularly, deliberately, choosing the thing that requires slightly more than they currently have with confidence that they will adapt to meet it. This does not mean choosing hard for the sake of hard. Hard for the sake of hard is just suffering. It means choosing meaningful hard. The hard thing that builds the capability you need for the life you want. The hard conversation that moves the relationship forward. The hard project that develops the skill that opens the next door. The hard physical discipline that builds the body and the mind that supports everything else. Purposeful challenge. Hard in the direction of something that matters. The edge feels different from where you are now. It feels uncertain. It feels like you might fail. It feels like you do not fully know what you are doing. That is how you know you are at the right place. The certainty you feel inside your comfort zone is not wisdom. It is familiarity. The uncertainty you feel at the edge is not weakness. It is the correct signal that you are operating at the boundary of your current capability and about to expand it. Choose hard. Here is what choosing hard as a practice looks like. It looks like a standing rule. When you have the choice between the comfortable version and the challenging version and both lead somewhere worth going, you choose the challenging version. Not every time. Not when you are depleted or when the timing is genuinely wrong. But as a default. As a bias. As a commitment to the version of yourself that only exists through continued growth. It looks like making one hard choice today that the comfortable version of you would avoid. One conversation. One commitment. One new skill. One project that requires more than you currently have. One yes to something that makes your nervous system signal caution because it is uncertain. Today. Not when you feel ready. Today. It looks like building recovery into your life alongside challenge because growth requires both. The people who burn out from hard things did not challenge themselves too much. They challenged themselves without adequate recovery. Challenge is not the problem. Unrecovered challenge is. Build the hard things in. Build the recovery in. That is the full equation. The most dangerous place you can live is the place that stopped challenging you. You know where that is in your own life. You know what has become too comfortable. You know what you have been avoiding because it asks more of you than you have been willing to give. That is exactly where you need to go. Not because discomfort is noble. Because the version of you that exists on the other side of that discomfort is the version of you that was supposed to exist. And you do not get there by staying safe. Subscribe. This is LifeForge. Now forge yourself. What happened to you was real. The pain was real. The damage was real. The ways in which other people failed you, the circumstances that worked against you, the seasons that broke things that took years to rebuild, all of it was real. I am not here to minimize any of it. I am here to tell you something that might be harder to hear than any of that. What happened to you does not determine what you become. You do. That is not comfort. It is responsibility. And for a lot of people that responsibility feels heavier than the wound itself. Because as long as the past is the reason you cannot move, you do not have to move. But the moment you accept that what happens next is determined by your choices and not your history, you have to start making different choices. And that is the harder thing. Here is what we are covering. The story you have built around what happened to you and why it may not be serving you. The critical difference between what caused your pain and what your pain has become in your identity. what to keep from your history and what is costing you to carry. The choice that separates the people who are defined by what happened from the people who are shaped by it. And who you become when you make that choice. The story you carry. Something happened to you. And around that something, you built a story. Most people do. The story explains who you are today by pointing to who did what to you then. It connects the present difficulty to the past event in a line of causation that feels unbreakable. It tells you why you struggle with trust because of what they did. Why you pull back from love because of what you lost. Why you cannot commit because of how commitment was betrayed. Why you protect yourself the way you do because of what happened when you did not. The story is not a lie. The causation is real. What happened to you genuinely shaped how you see the world and how you move through it. The story is not wrong. But there is a question you need to ask about it. Is this story describing what happened to me, or is it prescribing what I am allowed to become? Because those are two very different functions, and most people's stories are doing both without their awareness. A story that describes your history is useful. It gives you context for your patterns. It helps you understand why you respond the way you do. It creates the foundation for genuine healing, because you cannot heal what you do not understand. But a story that prescribes your future is a prison. It takes what was done to you and uses it to determine what you will do. It takes what you experienced and uses it to limit what you are capable of experiencing. It takes a moment from your past and extends it into your entire future without your permission. The question is not whether the story is true. The question is whether the story is taking you somewhere. Is it a story that builds you or a story that contains you? The difference between cause and identity. There is a critical difference between what caused your patterns and what your patterns have become in your identity. The cause was something that happened to you. The identity is something you have chosen, usually without fully realizing it was a choice. When you were hurt as a child, you did not choose the wound. When you were betrayed by someone you trusted, you did not choose the betrayal. When the circumstances of your early life limited your options, you did not choose those circumstances. The cause was external. The wound was real. And you deserve to acknowledge that fully without needing to rush past it or perform recovery you have not actually done. But the identity you built around the wound was a choice. A reasonable choice. An understandable choice. A choice that was probably protective at the time it was made. But a choice nonetheless. When you decided that what happened to you meant something permanent about what you could expect from people, from life, from yourself, that was a conclusion you drew. A story you committed to. An identity you accepted. And an identity that was once a reasonable response to pain can become an unreasonable limit on growth. The people who are most trapped by their histories are not the ones with the worst histories. They are the ones whose identity has merged most completely with what happened to them. Where the event and the self have become indistinguishable. Where to challenge the story is to challenge the self. Where healing feels threatening because the wound has become load-bearing in the architecture of who they understand themselves to be. That is the trap. Not the wound. The merger. What you keep and what you put down. Not everything from your history should be put down. Some of what your hard experiences gave you is genuinely valuable. The empathy that comes from having suffered. The strength that comes from having survived. The clarity that comes from having lost things that seemed important and discovered they were not. The ability to read danger that comes from having been in it. These are real assets. Things your history built in you that serve you and the people around you. The question is not whether to honor your past. It is what exactly you are carrying from it and whether you are carrying it consciously or unconsciously. The difference between a person who is shaped by their history and a person who is defined by it is not what happened to them. It is the relationship they have with what happened. One carries the lessons and puts down the verdict. The other carries both. The verdict is the part that says, because this happened I am this kind of person forever. I am someone who cannot trust. I am someone who does not deserve good things. I am someone who will always self-sabotage. I am someone who was made wrong by what was done to me. The verdict takes what happened and issues a permanent ruling on what is possible. And that ruling, unlike the original wound, is something you have the authority to challenge. The choice that changes everything. Here is the choice. You can make your history the explanation for your present or the fuel for your future. Not both. Because they require different orientations. The history as explanation looks backward. It uses what happened to account for where you are. It tells a story of causation that ends at today with no forward momentum. The history as fuel looks forward. It uses what happened as evidence of capacity. It says if I survived that I can survive this. If I built something from those circumstances I can build something from these. Both are using the same history. Both are telling true things about what happened. But one of them has a direction and one of them does not. One of them is pulling you towards something and one of them is holding you in place. The people who are defined by their histories are not weaker than the people who move beyond them. They have often been through harder things. They are not lacking courage or character. They are oriented backward. Their entire identity is structured around the past event in a way that makes the future feel secondary or even threatening. Turning around does not require forgetting what happened. It requires deciding that what happens next matters more than what already happened. Who you become from here. You do not become a different person by pretending your history did not happen. You become a different person by deciding that your history does not get to write the rest of the story. That what you do from this point forward is the fullest expression of your agency, not your wound. This is not a decision you make once. It is a decision you make every time the old story starts playing. Every time the old pattern starts running. Every time the wound whispers its old verdict and your nervous system starts preparing for an old threat. You recognize it, name it, and make the choice again. Not because the wound is not real but because you are more than the wound. You are the person who survived it. And the person who survived it has more capacity than the person who was wounded by it. What you become from here is not determined by what they did to you. It is not limited by what happened to you. It is not written by the hardest chapter of your story. It is written by what you choose to do with the chapters that remain. And you have more chapters remaining than you think. More capacity than the wound allowed you to see. More possible versions of your life than the old story could contain. What happened to you was real. What you become is yours. Subscribe. This is LifeForge. Now forge yourself. You think starting over means you failed. You think the reset is the defeat. You have been measuring the value of a path by how long you stayed on it, not by where it was taking you. And that math, the math that says leaving is losing and staying is commitment, has kept a lot of people in things they should have left years ago. Starting over is not failure. Starting over is the refusal to spend the rest of your life paying for a decision that no longer serves you. It is the recognition that the cost of continuing down the wrong road outweighs the discomfort of finding the right one. It is, actually, one of the most honest and courageous things a human being can do. Because it requires admitting that you were wrong, which is something most people will sacrifice years of their life to avoid. Here is what we are covering today. The sunk cost lie and why it is keeping you in things you should have left. What starting over actually means versus what you are afraid it means. The specific courage required to begin again. What you bring with you that makes the new start stronger than the first. And how to begin from exactly where you are right now. The sunk cost lie. The sunk cost fallacy says, because you have invested this much you must continue. Because you have spent this many years you must stay. Because you have gone this far down this road you must keep walking it even if it is not going anywhere you want to go. The sunk cost makes the past the reason for the future. It uses what you have already spent as an argument for what you should spend next. And your brain believes it. Your brain is specifically designed to feel the loss of what has already been invested more sharply than the gain of what might still be possible. Loss aversion. The same bias that makes financial losses feel twice as painful as equivalent gains makes leaving a dead-end path feel like a catastrophe even when staying is the actual catastrophe. Here is the truth about sunk costs. The time you already spent on the wrong thing is not recoverable by spending more time on it. The years in the wrong career do not become less wasted by adding another 5 years. The relationship that was not working does not become right because you have been in it long enough. The money spent on a failing venture does not come back because you keep pouring money into it. The past investment does not justify the future cost. It is already gone. The only decision available to you is what you do with what is in front of you, not what you do about what is behind you. Every day you stay in something you know is wrong for reasons that have more to do with your past investment than your future direction is a day you are letting the past hold your future hostage. The sunk cost is not wisdom. It is guilt wearing the mask of loyalty. What starting over actually means. Starting over does not mean going back to zero. It does not mean losing everything you built. It does not mean that the years were wasted or the investment was worthless or the path was a mistake in its entirety. Starting over means redirecting. It means applying what you have learned on the old path to a new direction. It means taking the accumulated capability from the years of experience and pointing it somewhere that actually has a future. The person who starts over at 35 with 10 years of accumulated skills, knowledge, relationships, and hard-won clarity about what they actually want is not starting from the same place as the person who began at 25. They are starting from a much stronger position. What looks like going backward is actually beginning a forward movement from a more capable, more informed, more self-aware starting point. The confusion happens because starting over looks like failure from the outside. The title changes, the income drops temporarily, the status resets, the trajectory shifts. And our culture reads those external markers as decline. But the internal reality is often the opposite. The person who left the wrong thing is more awake, more honest with themselves, more clear about what matters, more aligned between their outer life and their inner values. That is not failure. That is growth that required a visible cost to become real. Starting over also does not mean abandoning everything. It means keeping what is genuinely valuable, the skills, the relationships, the lessons, the parts of your identity that are truly yours, and releasing what was not serving you. The resume item that represents years of experience stays. The career that was slowly making you into someone you did not recognize goes. The wisdom stays. The path that was producing it gets redirected. The courage in the reset. The courage required to start over is underrated. It is easy to look at someone who started over and see the success they eventually built. It is harder to see what it cost them to leave. The internal accounting of walking away from something you built, something you identified with, something people around you valued and respected and expected you to continue. The conversations you have to have. The expectations you have to disappoint. The identity you have to surrender before you have a new one to replace it with. There is a period in every genuine start over where you are between identities. The old one does not fit anymore. The new one has not formed yet. And that in-between space is one of the most uncomfortable places a human being can occupy. Because identity, even a wrong identity, at least tells you who you are. The in-between tells you nothing. You are in process. Unfinished. And the people around you want to know who you are going to be, and you cannot answer them yet. Most people do not make it through that in-between space. They go back to the old identity because at least it is known. They re-enter the wrong path because at least it has a map. They choose the familiar wrong over the uncertain right because the uncertainty is harder to tolerate than the wrongness. The people who make it through, the people who actually build the new thing, are not the ones who found it easy. They are the ones who found it hard and kept going anyway. Starting over requires you to believe that what is possible on the other side is worth the cost of the in-between. That belief is not guaranteed to be correct. The new path might be harder than you expected. It might take longer. It might not look like what you imagined. But the alternative, staying in the wrong thing forever because leaving was uncomfortable, guarantees a different kind of cost. The cost of never finding out what was possible if you had been willing to begin again. What you bring with you. Here is what you carry into every new start. Everything real that you built is still yours. The skills do not disappear when the context changes. If you spent years becoming good at something, that capability follows you. The relationships that were genuine follow you. The character you developed under pressure follows you. The understanding of what you actually want, which you could only discover by experiencing what you do not want, follows you. What you also bring is the specific wisdom that only exists on the other side of a reset. The knowledge that you can begin again. That the world does not end when you leave the wrong thing. That the fear of starting over was more painful than the actual starting over. That you are more adaptable than you thought. That the identity you thought you could not survive losing was not as essential to you as the fear suggested. That what you actually need to be okay is much less than what you thought you needed. That wisdom is not available to the person who never left. It is only available to the person who went through the reset. And it will change how you approach every challenge, every decision, every fear for the rest of your life. Because you will know something that most people spend their entire lives afraid to find out. That you can begin again. That you have done it. That it cost you something real and gave you something realer. And that you would make the same choice again. Begin from right here. You do not need permission to start over. You do not need to wait until the timing is perfect, because the timing will not be perfect. You do not need to have the whole new plan before you leave the old path, because the new plan only becomes clear once you are moving. You do not need to have resolved every question, repaid every obligation, explained yourself to every person who has an opinion about your choices. You need to make one decision. The decision that what is in front of you matters more than what is behind you. That the version of your life that is still possible is worth the cost of the version you are leaving behind. That starting over from here, from exactly where you are, with what you have and what you know and who you are, is both possible and worth it. Because here is the thing about starting over that nobody tells you. It gets easier each time you do it. The first reset is the hardest because you do not know what it costs. The second is easier because you know it is survivable. And by the time you have started over with intention 2 or 3 times, it stops feeling like failure and starts feeling like how growth actually works. Not a straight line. A series of honest recalibrations toward what is actually true and good and possible. You are not starting from zero. You are starting from experience. From hard-won clarity. From the specific coordinates of who you are right now. That is not nothing. That is everything you need. Begin. Subscribe. This is LifeForge. Now forge yourself.